For a show already on the endangered list, it wasn't the weekend organisers needed. Around 20,000 people passed through the gates amid 3 days of persistent rain, half of what was hoped for.
That's still a damn good effort, I guess, under the circumstance we had. The people who came to the show actually enjoyed the show, and the feedback has been very, very positive, and so we know we put together something that was pretty good.
Thankfully, the ticket sales and a $40,000 11th hour injection from the state government proved just enough to break even. Now, as exhibitors dismantle rides, the real work begins behind the scenes. Organisers will hold meetings with government officials to work out a formula for the future.
That will involve the government actually returning the management rights and the revenue rights back to the Show Association, which was taken from us.
The show committee was stripped of those rights in 2008 and has never recovered.
No one has said to me that they don't want to see the show. Everyone says they want the show to be here and they want to be vibrant and sustainable and to do what we've been doing for 115 years for at least another 115 years.
And at least there's 360 odd days in which to pray for better weather. Kate Haberfield, NBN News. She's an icon of the sky, soaring over the Hunter for more than 2 decades. Mildred may be as proud as ever, but it's time for this old girl to retire.
It sort of is a sad day, but it's the start of a new beginning. So, it's being a professional outfit that we are now, it's always onwards and upwards.
Onwards and upwards for a service that had humble beginnings. From this Bell 47 in 1975, times and safety equipment have well and truly changed.
We didn't ever think that we'd have a twin-engine helicopter as big as this, but it's been a part of the folklore of the Hunter, and some of the biggest jobs that we've ever done have been in this machine.
The biggest mission of all, the Pasha Bulka storm. Not bad for a chopper purchased off Toyota in 1994.
Flying executives around back over in Japan, and now it's fitted out and there's been countless lives, thousands and thousands of lives saved in this aircraft.
And named in honour of a generous donor.
Named after a lady at Port Stephens who used to watch the helicopter come and go, sit on a veranda. She never ever used the service, believe it or not.
Mildred has been sold to a buyer in Germany, making way for the new high-tech fleet spotted off Newcastle today.
The government have put a lot of money into this next contract. It's a 10-year contract, so they've expended a hell of a lot of money in brand new aircraft, which are airline quality and take us into the next millennium.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
From the period when Australia, of course, applied a White Australia policy to a period where that was gradually dismantled over the 60s and 70s, and now, of course, we do run a genuinely non-discriminatory immigration program.
It's an ordinary classroom, but today's science, technology, engineering and mathematics, or STEM session at Newcastle High was anything but. Questacon's Smart Skills initiative encouraging students to create and even take flight.
We find that often high school students really don't get too much of a chance to build things with their hands and make prototypes, and it's great to show students how fun it can be.
Equipped with paper, scissors and tape, students were challenged to build objects to test in wind tunnels with mixed results.
How's it gone?
Pretty terrible.
Experimentation the key.
I got one that floated just like for a brief second though. So, yeah, it hasn't been that good so far.
I'm gathering it's harder than it looks.
Yeah.
And success takes more than science.
The teamwork, the analysis, the work that goes into completing these sorts of days is a really good skill set for those kids.
Newcastle High is the first of 35 Hunter and Central Coast schools being visited by Questacon this month as it continues its scientific mission.
Not just encourage careers in science and technology, but just encourage a general love for it. So no matter what you do, you end up innovating, playing, prototyping, building and making.
It's Australia's $90 million frontline fighter, the jewel in the RAAF's crown, sparkling in the Queensland sun.
It's, at the beginning of its growth path.
And that path will take the F-35A to Newcastle.
In 2 years' time, I'll be ready for a smashed avo breakfast and good coffee again.
The Lightning visit to Australia in the Lightning II has been handled by Wing Commander Andrew Jackson and Squadron Leader David Bell.
We've had a long association with Newcastle. It's a fantastic place to live. I think it's been the home of fighters for a long time, and it's going to continue to be that into the future.
Australia has bought 72 of the fighter jets at a cost of close to $20 billion to replace our ageing Hornets and Super Hornets.
It's clearly outperforming both of those aeroplanes.
Both in weaponry and tactical capabilities.
We will have laser-guided weapons, it will have GPS-guided weapons, short and long-range air-to-air missiles.
But primarily in its technology.
And to be able to share that information with Growler, with Super Hornet, with Wedgetail, to then broadcast it to, sea units or other land units, everybody's awareness is then so much better.
Like anything new, there's still a few teething issues, but we're told all will be ready for action. The first of the F-35s will arrive here in Australia late next year, enduring a 16-hour trans-Pacific flight before touching down at Williamtown RAF base in Newcastle. It'll still be 3 years after that before they're fully operational, and another 5 years before all 72 aircraft are combat ready.
We're very proud to bring the aircraft to you.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Desperate for a win, the Jets went on the attack early. And despite questions over the decision, Newcastle still took advantage. The Jets were flying. Daniel Mullen and Wayne Brown found some space before Andrew Houle created a chance. But then the momentum stopped. Jason Hoffman received a yellow for dissent, then this tackle earned him an early shower. The coach also received his marching orders. Down to 10, the Jets did their best to maintain the lead, Tomislav Archibald making several crucial saves, but another controversial decision gave Brisbane a lifeline. Jamie McLaren took care of the penalty and then grabbed a second goal to put the Raw in front. A third in the 90th minute killed off the contest. Post-game, the coaches agreed the send-off was harsh.
I don't think it was a red card, that's my opinion. I don't think it was a second yellow. I don't think it was a penalty, that's my opinion. But we were the better team when we had 11v11, and we were clearly the better team when we had 11v10.
But they didn't agree on everything.
100% we're in control of the game. We're 1-0 up and changing the point of attack, and I thought we were comfortably going to win the game, and if we had to put us back in the top six. So the frustration stems from there.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Beaten but far from disgraced, the Knights arrived home in a reflective mood.
We know we had to be better in a couple of departments there, and yeah, it's unfortunate that we had those errors and we kind of threw it away. It was ours to win.
Dylan Fithian was getting comfortable at fullback until his serious knee injury.
He's obviously shattered, and it's a big blow for him, and we're all here for him though. But he's still walking around with a bit of a smile on his face.
Mitch Barnett was also in the wars.
Yeah, I'm alright. Yeah, a couple of bumps, but it's all good. It's part of footy, but a couple of days and we're right to go again.
Fellow forward Jack Stockwell was buzzing after a rare try. The 25-year-old was almost forced out of the club last year, but says he's now in a better place mentally and physically.
We had a bit of a disrupted pre-season last year going into the season, so but this year, it's been really good. Pre-season's been awesome, and it's good having a good bunch of blokes around here, so mate, that helps.
Move-in day at Toronto Police Station. And while there's still plenty of unpacking, sorting and setting up to do, Superintendent Brett Greentree couldn't be more pleased.
Very exciting day for the police. It's been probably a long time coming for the Lake Macquarie Command.
Construction began 12 months ago. The modern facility, a stark contrast to the outdated station that once stood here. Its opening also marks the closure of a temporary station at Boolaroo. Toronto is the third and final station in the Lake Macquarie area to receive a complete overhaul, bringing policing into the 21st century.
We utilised Boolaroo whilst Toronto was being built. It's a very old building and just suited to policing in 2017. Toronto Police Station is now state of the art.
It's got all the bells and whistles, from the charge station and holding cells to the latest high-tech security system. And there's one notable inclusion compared to its predecessor, room to move.
We could have a lot of officers here, including detectives, crime management unit, depending on the need.
Amanda Bennett, NBN News.
It's as emotive as it is educational. Artefacts, models and medals, a sensory experience to commemorate our diggers.
The exhibition tells the story of Australian experiences before, during and after the First World War, and also the century of service which followed for the Royal Australian Navy, Australian Army and the Royal Australian Air Force.
More than 200 items from the Australian War Memorial's National Collection will be on display in the Spirit of Anzac Centenary Experience, with modern technology used to bring history to life.
The story is enormous, and in designing it, the hard part was not what to put in it, is what gets left out.
More than 300,000 Australians have so far taken in the travelling exhibition, which has been on the road since 2015. It's tailor-made for each stop.
In each location, we've curated a community display, which was really intended to draw stories out from the local community.
One of the artefacts that will be on display is this book of gold, normally locked away. This is made from the melted down wedding rings of war widows, and it contains the names of hunter soldiers who died in World War I.
For many, what started as an adventure became probably the grimmest time of their lives, and something that for many took decades to get over, if they ever did.
The free exhibition will visit Newcastle Entertainment Centre for 6 days from the 29th of this month. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
These helicopters and troops would be predominantly involved in close air support missions, so that involves close proximity to friendly forces. Particularly in an urban environment like this, it's quite important that the students learn how to correctly and safely employ these assets.
Heartbreak for Dylan Fithian, a player with great potential and one that's earned his place in Nathan Brown's side, cut down for the remainder of 2017.
They're pretty confident he's done his ACL, which is very disappointing, not only for Dylan but for us as a club and a team, because South Sydney just lost Greg Inglis, but Dylan Fithian's our Greg Inglis because he's our number one fullback and they're very, very important players.
Brendan Elliott was 18th man for the clash with the Warriors. The 23-year-old joined the Knights late last year and will now fill a role at the back.
Brendan's trained, did some bit of training in the pre-season. He had a 15 or 20 minute stint against Canberra in the trial and held himself very, very well. And as I said, everyone's confident he'll do a very, very good job. So we don't want to move the team around if we don't have to. Pete did a good job when he went back there, and Pete had it was good. Him and Rossi got a good combination going over there. So we don't want to break that up if we don't have to.
Despite the Knights' New South Wales Cup side being thrashed by the Warriors, Anthony Tupou is close to being called into Brown's Matchday 17 for Saturday's clash with the Titans.
He's very professional, Toops, and he's been around a long time. He knows what he's got to do to get by, off the field and on the field. And look, he won't be far away from playing, whether it's this week or in 2 or 3 weeks.
A coming together of Northern New South Wales football clubs ahead of the regular season. Edgeworth is defending its Premier League crown and goes in as the red-hot favourite.
Yeah, we've got a massive target on our back, but we don't fear it whatsoever. We're well prepared. Damien's put together a fantastic pre-season and we'll be there or thereabouts at the end of the season.
Former Jet skipper Ruben Zadkovic has taken the coaching reins at the Magic. He also expects his side to be there at the business end.
It's quite different, to be honest, from playing and leading as a captain. It's very different. There's a lot of detail that needs to be done, a lot of work needs to be done behind the scenes before you even get to the training paddock or on game day. And it's a steep learning curve, but it's one that I'm really enjoying.
Former A-League player Andrew Packer is at the helm of New Lambton FC. It's the latest club to be promoted to the second tier known as League One and has set some lofty goals for the upcoming campaign.
If we can have 2 or 3 teams on grand final day, that'd be the perfect thing for this club. Just to be represented on that grand final day would be really good.
Cassidy Davis will captain coach defending Women's Premier League champions Warners Bay.
We're aiming for minor and major like I guess every other team, but from my day coaching last year, I think I've got a pretty big bar to step up to.
These batches of files which have debits and credits, some have been running slowly and some have been incomplete.
The owner of the dogs was actually spoken to as well, and so police at this stage have got evidence they believe is sufficient to proceed with an offence under the Companion Animals Act.
Menacing bushfires and record-breaking extreme temperatures. Summer in the Hunter was tough.
This is the worst possible conditions. We're seeing weather readings that we've never seen before.
But according to the Climate Council's latest report, we weren't the only ones suffering.
45% of the entire area of the state of New South Wales saw record temperatures during this summer. On 11th February, the average maximum temperature over the entire state was 44 degrees Celsius.
On that same day, Williamtown, Cessnock and Singleton copped their hottest days on record, peaking at a searing 47 degrees in Singleton. The region itself sweltered through a record number of days above 40, and the Climate Council says it knows why.
There's now a very direct link between burning fossil fuels in the electricity sector and other sectors and the type of extreme weather we're experiencing.
The organisation warns the worst could be to come if we don't change our ways.
Those countries that try to hang on to the polluting old coal-fired power stations, that's history. That's the 20th century.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The number of people who care for their rabbits and obviously want to get them vaccinated has really outstripped the expected demand, and the vaccine is currently on a couple of weeks back order.
What we're seeing is that our beloved wildlife here in the Hunter, like the spotted quoll and the regent honeyeater, they are really experiencing death by 1,000 cuts because of these really inadequate offsetting schemes.
The syndicate calls itself the 10 Tenors, and it certainly has plenty of reason to be singing today. They're now millionaires, each collecting $1,111,110. There has been a delay to get to this point. The syndicate's cardholder was on holidays in New Zealand. You can only imagine that holiday was made all the more sweeter. Now today we've also learnt a bit about these lucky Novocastrians. The syndicate's been operating for the past 10 years. It started with 10 members, but is now down to 9. The group is in their 50s and 60s and previously all worked together at Newcastle Council, although some had already retired before this big win. And while there are plenty of possibilities on what to do with the winnings, the tenors say they're going to pay off debts and help their families. They were due to revisit the Georgetown News Agency today, where they bought the ticket. Its owners just happy to be part of the dream.
A bit of a buzz because we haven't had anything like this happen to us before. So yeah, it was just, we couldn't believe it. We just went, yay, finally.
It's won everywhere else, Marketown, Walls End, they've all won, but we needed something to put Georgetown on the map.
The winners have chosen to keep their identities a secret so they can carry on with their lives as normal, except of course, being $1 million richer.
A lot of multicultural groups in around the suburbs of Newcastle coming together on the multicultural stage. So it's going to be a great time for them to showcase what they do.
The Warriors clash was a tough outing for the Knights, but more so for Dylan Pythian.
I'm gutted for Pith, but he's got a lot of support here, and while he's out, I'm going to take my opportunity here and I'm going to play to the best of my ability.
Brendan Elliott will step in at fullback, normally a winger in the NRL. He did play his junior footy in the number 1 jersey.
It definitely wasn't, but in saying that, I've done a lot of work there, closely with Pith in the pre-season, and I've done a lot of video this week and last week as a fullback, so I'm quite confident and ready to go out there on Saturday.
Training at Hunter Tafe's Tyers Hill campus today, the Knights say they learned some tough lessons from their trip across the ditch.
So we had a 20-minute lapse where they scored 4 tries, and we just can't afford to be doing that, especially against the Warriors. But later on in the year when we come up to the crunch time and we need wins or things like that, so we really need to start focusing on playing for the whole game.
Josh Starling was one of the standouts. It was his first game in the red and blue. He'll be a key figure at home against the Titans.
It's actually the only ground I've never played first grade at, so it'll be my first ever first grade game at Hunter Stadium, and I'm really excited for it, and I used to play there as a kid.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
Griffiths ruptured his ACL playing for Wellington and has spent almost 2 years adjusting to life after the A-League. He's built his home loan business with wife Bianca and taken on the role of football operations manager with the Jets. But the 37-year-old simply missed the idea of training and competing.
I forget about all the other stuff that's going on with Aussie and Jet stuff, and that's just all forgotten for that time I'm out there. So I've really enjoyed that part of it.
Job Wheelhouse and Brad Swancott were among those who convinced him to sign with Lambton.
At the moment, I'm pretty confident I'll be available for Sunday, and looking forward to it. It's been a pretty hard pre-season, been off the grog since Magic Millions up there on the Gold Coast.
The NPL already features other former A-League stars in Matt Thompson, Leo Bertos and Daniel McBreen, but Joel knows he's still likely to be a heavily marked man.
I'm definitely aware of that. I'm trying to prepare myself mentally for that. Obviously, I'm not stupid. I know there would be a bit of a target on my back.
While Griffiths prepares for his first game, 2 Hamilton players are eyeing their own milestone. If selected to face the Jaffers, Kyle Hodges and Matthew Swan will both notch up 100 first-grade games for Olympic.
I definitely felt I could have been inside the top 10 if we had have had more testing and had have had the car perfect before the weekend. But, you know, it comes with practice, so hopefully we'll be on top of it by Tasmania and I can get inside the top 10.
It's 2 years since the state government pledged $68 million for a Muswellbrook bypass, but still there's no sign of progress.
It isn't good enough. I mean, you cannot imagine worse consultation.
The council says Roads and Maritime had slated discussions about a concept design for last October, and that community consultation about an environmental assessment would take place this June. But the agenda's been thrown out the window.
Yesterday, the RMS tell Council that they have nothing to show. Be upfront with us, tell us where the project's up to and let us know, is this actually going to be done in time for the next round of federal funding or not?
Member for Upper Hunter, Michael Johnson, today told NBN News work is being done to build the business case for the bypass to ensure the project meets the requirements for federal funding. The Nationals MP also took a swipe at the Mayor, saying he's being kept informed on a quarterly basis and unfortunately feels the need to play petty political games.
For Mr Johnson to say that they've been meeting quarterly just shows his disconnect now from the issue and frankly the electorate. He really does play politics in just throwing mud around. Really what he needs to do is just simply answer the question.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
It's important to understand that this is an event that actually impacts the entire payment and financial services industry, which has certainly extended the timeframe to resolution.
Puts them all under one banner so that we can explore those interdisciplinary relationships between all those different creative industries.
From a new track to a new look and even a new name.
Probably be one of the most exciting things that's happening at this track for decades.
The new look Newcastle Race Club unveiled for the first time tonight.
Change the image and it gives you a whole fresh brand and a whole fresh start.
Along with the new Newcastle Racetrack.
We've been branded the Newcastle Jockey Club for many, many years, but we do a lot more than that for this community. We do trade shows, we do exhibitions, people have weddings here. We're a whole part of the community as far as an entertainment centre also.
The changes coming at an important time in the club's history. The relaunch of the Jockey Club is as much a celebration of the past as it is the future. This month marks 110 years since the Newcastle Cup was first raced right here at Broadmeadow. And later this month it will be raced yet again, only this time on the new course proper. An $11.2 million investment by Racing New South Wales that's expected to pay dividends for the club.
And that'll include bringing more horses to the area, bringing more stables to the area, and of course more employment for people and be a whole uplift of racing in this area.
Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
Sun, surf and snake. A 2-metre diamond python, not the thing you'd usually associate with beachside Newcastle, soaking up the rays on a Merriweather roof. Today, professional snake handler Jeff Deleuze took a closer look. He says while the striking but common python may have made a home in this backyard, it would usually reside in a nearby reserve.
We have a lot of diamond pythons in our local area, so especially here where you're back onto bushland corridors.
The scaly squatter was discovered by residents Mark Jackson and Jane Gelbart last weekend and has likely been feeding on rats, birds, possums or bats. But surprisingly, this snake is not going anywhere. Miss Gelbart says she's happy to have the apex predator living in the house.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, she's not going to attack the cat, that's nice to know. And she needs a place to stay. And we've got to share our space with the creatures. I mean, you know, so it's an empty roof, she can have it.
But experts add that anyone who spots an uninvited reptile at their house should keep their distance.
Take a photo, stay from a distance and send it into any of the wildlife organisations or contact a professional. They should be able to identify it straight away.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
I feel like, you know, I started something with this club where come from pretty much rock bottom, and I feel like there's a lot of improvement in us left to do, and we've come a long way, so I just want to see it out and hopefully get this club back to the top.
He's softly spoken, but Ugarkovic clearly made plenty of noise in February. It's a great confidence boost for the 22-year-old who watched with interest this week as 7 players from the A-League were selected in the Socceroos squad.
Yeah, obviously it's more motivation seeing young boys getting picked in the Socceroos. Makes me want to work harder and have a good end to the season and then see what happens at the end of the season with the camp coming up.
The Jets returned to training for the first time today following the controversial loss to the Raw.
We thought we dominated the first 30 minutes and then, as you can say, a referee's decision changed the game, and from there it's hard to play against a team like Brisbane.
Newcastle has 9 days to wait for its round 23 clash with Melbourne City. A 1-game ban will see coach Mark Jones spend that game in the stands, while a host of candidates will vie to replace the suspended Jason Hoffman.
He's a massive loss. He's a great player, he's a great person, great leader also. So I think we've just got to, I think there's players that can step in and fill the position.
Using the Old English word for little eagle, the Arnett's program is taking off. The 3-month plan will see kids aged 7 to 13 take part in training sessions and small-sided games, with some matches taking place before big crowds at NPL fixtures.
We're trying to provide more opportunities for kids with a disability, and the House of No Steps work very hard to get kids involved in sport. We want them to be part of a community club. We don't want to run isolated programs.
It's another milestone for a club celebrating its 125th birthday. The Eagles will mark that by wearing a special jersey against the Magic tomorrow.
In recognition of the first strips in 1955 of Edgeworth juniors and seniors, we'll be wearing the strip for the first game of the season, and it's a very nice strip, and looking forward to get into it.
Edgeworth will also wear the strip on May 14 when it hosts Valentine, a game that takes place exactly 125 years since the club formed. All proceeds will go to the Arnett's program. As for round 1,
grand final replay against Broadmeadow Magic. They've strengthened in the off-season, so we're looking forward to hopefully getting a good crowd out here to spur us on and hopefully get 3 points.
After sharing a parliamentary secretary with the Central Coast in Scott McDonald, the region was granted its own in late January. But it wasn't to be. Catherine Cusack resigning yesterday after sending a scathing email to Premier Gladys Berejiklian. Her actions have been applauded by the state opposition, including a former minister for the Hunter.
One has to admire that she had the courage to actually say what everybody is thinking. This week in Parliament, wherever you went, everybody was talking about Don Harwin's very poor performance. In fact, many people were saying they haven't seen a minister so poorly prepared and incapable of managing his portfolio. So she said what everybody was thinking, and all credit to her.
Catherine Cusack has done the honourable thing and said enough's enough.
The Hunter Joint Organisation of Councils is now calling on the government to return Scott McDonald to the position. Organisation Chair, Cessnock Mayor Bob Pinsent, believes Mr McDonald is the obvious choice, as Hunter communities have already built a relationship with him. Mr McDonald telling NBN News he would be very happy to do it if asked by the Premier. It's also renewed calls for a designated local minister.
The government should have always given us a minister and a proper voice in their cabinet.
It's a matter for the Premier as to those sort of appointments, but I can tell you that ministers in New South Wales are very much focused on the Hunter.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
The government needs to be very clear as to exactly what that means for all the people living with that contamination.
The EPA has been silent really since this came out late last year, and we think it's time that they need to step up.
We have a new minister now, we have a new Premier. It's time for them to look at this with fresh eyes to the benefit of our community.
What we want the minister to do is actually do a proper business case appraisal of this project so that she understands that this is a worthy project.
Taking off into a new era.
What these machines do is they take the number and the level of service that we can deliver to a level that we couldn't do before.
With the retirement of the Bell 412 this week, the new fleet has come online at its new base at Pelican, the former airport turned aviation hub. It marks the start of a 10-year partnership between the Westpac Rescue Helicopter and New South Wales Ambulance.
This first base is a significant step forward in the safety and quality of the service that we can deliver to the community.
With bases also operating at Tamworth and Lismore, its services will extend between the Hawkesbury River to the Queensland border.
Our increased speed and our increased range will actually enable us to actually get there quicker and actually go further to do the same thing.
The Health Minister today inspected the Augusta 139, a high-tech aircraft which is larger and more powerful, boasting all the bells and whistles. It can carry 2 intensive care patients at a time.
One of the biggest and most important differences with this new aircraft is the space, giving doctors and paramedics more room to treat patients.
Myself and the doctor have greater access to our patient in flight. So we're able to slide up and down both sides of the patient, almost 360-degree access, which we've never had before.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
A solution to the thorn in the side of Newcastle's progress.
The old mines and the issues around subsidence in Newcastle was holding back Newcastle's development.
Grouting work is underway to stabilise the site of a future apartment block on Parry Street, part of the state government's $17 million Newcastle Mines Grouting Fund, set up in November 2015. Today, applications were extended until the end of this year to encourage more projects to push ahead.
It's effectively an insurance policy that says to a developer that if you actually face an issue where the works go onto other properties, we'll help you overcome that.
And the Minister for Planning and Housing says the timing couldn't be better.
You will see more commercial coming into Newcastle. Why? Because the Hunter region is about to boom. You have Sydney, which is becoming more congested, where housing affordability is a major issue. People are going to start making a choice and choosing to move to the Hunter because of its lifestyle, because of its environment, and because there will be more jobs here.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
He's the local boy who's made it to the big time a lot sooner than expected. After just 1 year in reserve grade, Luke Yates made his NRL debut on Sunday after Mitch Barnett copped a head knock.
It was pretty surreal, really. I went on and then I looked up and it was Isaac Luke and Simon Marion, so I was sort of a bit taken back off that. But once I sort of got into the game and that back end, I played the last 35 or so, I felt really comfortable.
Named on an extended bench to take on the Titans tomorrow, the former Wests junior is looking forward to a parochial home crowd.
I've got about 20 tickets off the club, so I've got to get the family and friends out.
A first home game too for Manly recruit Jamie Burer.
It's a really good track though, I like playing on it, so it's good to call this one home.
As usual, Jared Hayne has dominated talk ahead of the clash, but it's not coming from the Knights.
I don't want to give him any extra motivation, mate. I think he's got enough. We've done our video on Jared, we know what he's capable of, and we're going to be hopefully doing everything we can to limit it.
Gold Coast, also coming off a round 1 loss, is wary of a resurgent Newcastle outfit.
I thought they were very energetic against the Warriors side. It's a tough road trip over there to start the season, and they were a little bit unlucky. Their outside backs are very strong. They get involved, and their forward pack, they play an attractive style of footy.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News. It wasn't the best conditions, a dangerous swell disrupting the opening day of the state titles, forcing the cancellation of all under-15 events, and in an extraordinary move, the Masters surf boats were contested on the lake. For Ironman and Blacksmiths local Isaac Costello, the conditions weren't an issue.
It's pretty even throughout the whole line and everyone's getting a fair go, so it should be good come finals day.
Olympic kayaker Riley Fitzsimmons contested the board for Avoca, just happy to give back to the sport he credits for his success.
Board's my first love with surf life saving, so something I always hold close to my heart, and I love coming to the clubbies and racing a board race every now and then.
One of the biggest names at the 3-day event, Manly's Kendrick Louis, fresh from national Ironman success, lapping up the atmosphere.
We train hard together, we race hard together, and whatever happens at the end of the day, you'll celebrate together.
The swell is expected to ease over the next 2 days of competition. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
Superb work to get back to 11 under par.